Hi there, English learners. How are you today? I'm doing great. I hope that you're having a fantastic week too. And I'm so glad that you are joining me today. I'm Shell from Get Lit English, and today I'm here to help you learn how to build better sentences. You know, most English students, from my experience, don't have any problem at all when it comes to simple, straightforward sentences. But when they venture out to make compound sentences or complex sentences or even compound complex sentences, what a huge mix of grammatical errors does that sometimes turn out to be. But it doesn't have to be that difficult. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what to do with a formula-based activity to show you how to put sentences together. That's right, just like math, English can have formulas too. All right, so put those hard hats on and come along with me as I teach you how to build compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. Are you ready? Let's take a look. Alrighty, you guys ready to build better sentences? When you're talking about sentences, there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and you need to be able to recognize phrases versus clauses. Today, we are going to be really focusing on two different types of clauses, which are independent clauses and dependent clauses. So, what is the difference between a phrase and a clause? Well, a phrase is just a group of words that function as a unit, like the phrasal verbs that you all love so much. It may not make up part of the subject or the predicate, and it will not include both a subject and a predicate, and it cannot stand as a sentence by itself. So what kind of phrases do we have? We have noun phrases, verb phrases, adverbials, prepositional phrases. But a clause is different. A clause is a word or a group of words that function as a unit. It always includes both the subject and a predicate, and it may stand as a sentence depending on its structure. It may be a sentence all by itself, but that's only independent clauses. Dependent clauses cannot stand alone. So let's talk about clauses now. First, I want to talk about the main or the independent clause. These are the same thing. There's just different terms for them. I want you to start looking at your sentences that you're creating in chunks and in clauses or phrases so that you know exactly how to build these sentences. So an independent clause can be a sentence all by itself. It is a clause that contains a subject and an object. It's the main or the independent clause that makes sense all on its own. Let's take example, the very simple sentence, I eat pizza. This can be a sentence all by itself, but maybe I want to add a little bit more information. So I might want to join this sentence to another clause. I can either join it to another independent clause and make a compound sentence, or I can join it to a dependent clause and make a complex sentence. Let's take a look at how to do both types of sentences. But first, let's talk about what a dependent clause is. A dependent clause is missing its subject. It is there to give extra information. For example, every Friday. This is giving information about when I do something. So a dependent clause, or also called a subordinate clause, is a clause that cannot stand alone. It cannot, because it is not a complete sentence. It does not express a complete thought. Anytime you can ask what after a clause, you know it cannot be a complete thought. For example, if I said to you, every Friday, you would say, every Friday, what? So we have to join this to the main sentence. Now, how do we join clauses together? Well, this depends on the type of sentence that we're trying to build. But we always do it through what we call connectives. Just like if you want to plug your mobile phone into the outlet, you're going to need a connector. So connectives are ways that we join clauses together. And we also can use some kind of connectives to join phrases together or words together. But today we're talking about how to join clauses together. Connectives that join clauses can either be conjunctions, prepositions, or adverbs. So we're going to discuss two different types of conjunctions today. Conjunctions that are used with compound sentences, and conjunctions that are used with complex sentences. So your coordinating conjunctions are what we call fanboys. Fanboys stand for different words. This is an acronym here. We've got for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. All of these are what we call coordinating conjunctions, which are used solely to build compound sentences. Now, on the other hand, if we want to build a complex sentence, we're going to need to use what we call subordinating conjunctions. We are looking at things that tell place and time, reasons or cause. Things that give us a comparison are things that bring contrast. Now, there are a huge amount of different types of subordinating conjunctions, but the more you use them, do a search for them on Google, you will find more connectives that you can use to build your complex sentence. Words like whenever, since, after, now, that, whether, although, as if, and because. So let's look at the structure of the sentences. Compound sentences follow a very simple, easy to follow formula. You need two independent clauses. That means two sentences, complete sentences on either side of your fanboy. And you need to make sure that you have a comma before your fanboy. So we could look at it like a mathematical type formula. We could say independent clause plus a comma plus a fanboy plus another independent clause is going to equal your compound sentence. Now, your fanboys are also used to join phrases or words to an independent clause, but when you do that, you don't use a comma. So don't get simple sentences confused with compound sentences. The difference is, in a compound sentence, you will always have two independent clauses. Let's look at some examples, shall we? For, we listened eagerly, comma, for, the lesson was very interesting. And, she didn't speak English, comma, and Nobody spoke Russian. Nor, I don't like horror movies, comma, nor do I enjoy scary books. They rushed to the hospital, comma, but they were too late. Or, I will go shopping, comma, or I will go to the movies. Yet, Kelly was a strict teacher, comma, yet many students respected her. So, I was feeling hungry, comma, so I made myself a sandwich. Now, make sure to always add in your full stop, or as we say in American English, the period, at the end of your sentences, or use exclamation points or question marks if the need be. A subordinate clause contains a subject and a verb, but it needs to be attached to a main clause because it cannot make sense on its own. For example, if I said to you, every Friday, you would say, every Friday what, Shell? So we know that this needs a main sentence to go along with it. We need to add it to an independent sentence. So let's learn how to build complex sentences, shall we? Complex sentence has two formulas that I'm going to show you. We can either put our independent clause first, followed by our dependent clause, and in this case, there is no need for a comma. It's independent clause plus dependent clause equals complex sentence. For example, I eat pizza every Friday. You have your main independent clause, and we attach the dependent clause every Friday. And because my independent clause came first, I don't need a comma. So this sentence is complete. Now we can also put our dependent clause first. And when our subordinate comes first, our subordinate clause comes first, we do need a comma. Every Friday, comma, I eat pizza. So make sure you remember independent clause first, no comma. Dependent clause first, you need a comma. Simple, simple, simple. Let's take a look at a few examples. He inspires me always because he believes in me. There's no comma needed here because my main sentence came first. Now, since the sun will shine today, comma, we will go to the beach. When she was sick, comma, her teacher gave the exam. If I pass the test, comma, my dad will buy me a car. After, I will get a new car after I pass the test. No comma needed because my main clause, my independent clause, came first. Once my husband finishes the work, comma, we will go shopping. The main sentence here, my independent sentence, is we will go shopping. That is the main sentence. Since it comes second, we need to have a comma after our subordinate clause. As soon as I get home, comma, I will take a nap. Now that you know how to use compound sentences and you know how to build complex sentences, let's look at how we can plug these clauses together to create an even longer compound complex sentence. So for a compound complex sentence, you need to have at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. We can take a look at this example. We have the independent clause plus the dependent clause plus the conjunction plus the fanboy plus another independent clause. Let's get an example. I eat pizza every Friday, but on Tuesdays, I eat spaghetti. This is an example of a compound complex sentence. And this has two independent clauses and one dependent clause. So we join our complex sentence, which is the beginning, I eat pizza every Friday, and we add a comma and join in another independent clause with a fanboy, which makes this a compound complex sentence. Now for formula number 2. This is also a compound complex sentence, and we have here also two independent sentences, independent clauses. I eat pizza, and then on Tuesdays I eat spaghetti. But now we're putting our dependent clause first. So because the dependent clause comes first, we need to have a comma between the dependent clause and the independent clause. And we also need a comma before our fanboy, always before a fanboy when it's joining clauses together. So we could look at the formula here being dependent clause plus a comma plus an independent clause plus a comma plus a fanboy plus an independent clause. And there you have another compound complex sentence. Easy, right? Well, that wraps up this video, and I really hope that now you know how to build some better sentences. Practice makes perfect. Let me see some of your sentences down in the comments, and I'll check them and give you some feedback. All right, guys, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Be blessed.